Hi, this is Tim Grant back at you. Today I'm going to be talking about assemblies and builds in order time. I'm with Business Solution Providers. We're inventory and manufacturing software consultants out of Reno, Nevada. And one of my favorite products is order time. So today I'm going to talk about kind of a really simple summary of how you put together a bill of materials and a little bit of the pros and cons of doing things each way. Give you a little insight so you understand a little bit about how to build them and when you use them. So let's get into it. So before we actually start a bill of materials, there's a couple things that I want you to prepare for before we get started on it. And the first thing you want to do is go up to your company name in the upper right-hand side. And we want to visit the profile lists under general admin over here on the left. And there's two areas that I want you to look at to get set up for. So, you can set up different group items, and under item groups, there are default groups that are set up. And what we're going to work on is what we can do, excuse me, is what we can set up is an assembly group. You can set up as many assembly groups as you want. It's really depending upon your business. If it's a kind of small business, then that's fine. Maybe the default assembly group is really all you need. It's more for being able to manage quite a few items, and so that you have a organized way to be able to deal with them. And an assembly group, or whatever you want to call it, you can come in and you can give it a name. It's obviously going to be an assembly type item. That's what makes it pertinent to what we're talking about today, and so that it'll have an associated bill of materials. And so these are always assembly type items. Down here, you can adjust the separate accounts. This is kind of the secret sauce to setting up separate groups, because this way you can take a group of assemblies and have them all attached to different income, asset, and cost of goods sold accounts. And so like under our inventory asset account, you would typically have these associated with like a raw materials account, or a work in process, or a finished goods. So you kind of want to think about ahead of time where this assembly is going to fit in to your overall scope of things. And you can do the same with an income account and a cost of goods sold account. Also important is setting up the units of measure. So we'll do another session on units of measure, because clients tend to get really tripped up on that. But for what we're doing today, and when you really think about a item or an assembly, they always have a single unit of measure that's going to be associated with them. Now, try not to jump ahead and think, well, I purchase in a different unit, or I sell in another unit. No, what we're talking about is just a stocking unit. One unit of measure that we relate to an item, and we have it in stock, or maybe it's just the way we normally use it, is a single unit of measure. And it's just here where we assign that single unit. Okay, so that's one thing we want to look at. The other thing that we look at is called steps within production, because order time is a little unique in that it also it combines the steps, or what are called sometimes in manufacturing routings, along with the bill of materials all on one page. So we really want to start with the steps. Also, think of them as the operations of a manufacturing order that's being done. And so the steps can be anything that you normally have as an operation within any of your manufacturing orders. So what I've done here is I've already created a few. I'll create another one, say maybe pick items. Okay, and I can give that a description if I want. It's important that you associate this item with a specific location. where this step might be used. But really all we have to do is hit save. It's updated, and now it's been added to our list. And I'll show in a minute how that gets incorporated into the bill of materials. So let's go ahead and get started with actually creating our bill of materials. So on our drop-down list on the left, we're going to do a create new, and we're going to select an item. Now, this is where that assembly group comes in. And once I select an assembly group, because it is an assembly type of item, it's going to be associated just with this group. And that's where that structure of groups comes in, to decide which group that you want to lay them out with. So we have an assembly group. We'll give this a name. We'll call this building widgets. Okay. Again, we have our unit of measure for the assembly that we're building. Down here, we can have a sales description. We can give this a price if it's also a product that we sell. If it's a subassembly that we don't sell as a replacement part, we really don't need a price. There's a purchasing tab. Again, you can have a separate purchasing description if need be. You don't really need a cost, because a assembly is a roll-up of all of the component costs into the final assembly that we're creating. You can also have notes and custom fields. You can also set this up as a subassembly if it's in a group in the hierarchy of your list of items. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and save that. And you see, when I do that, because this is an assembly, it comes out with a separate bill of materials. And so we want to click that first. Now, what this is doing, and it's also often referred to as a recipe, but that's essentially what a bill of materials is. It's just the components that are going in, maybe think of it as ingredients, as well as the steps or operations that are going into building it. So it's really pretty easy to put together. All we do is we're going to start with the steps or operations part of it first. We're going to add our steps here. So let's say we pick our items first. We tell it how much time that should take. And then we just go through and add the other items. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of my default one there. So I now pick our items, assemble them, I paint them, and I inspect them. Simple operation flow of how a manufacturing order should work. And then with each of these, what we would do is we click on a step and we can add our components. So as I click through these, you can see the steps are what drive the components that are added to each item. So if I were to pick items here, I would add our components of what goes into this. Note one other thing, there is a button for a one-time item. So what that basically means is just that we have an item that's going to be involved in our bill of materials, except it doesn't matter how many of these that we make. We're only using one of this particular item per the manufacturing run. So you might have that for like an instruction manual or an accessory kit or something like that, where it doesn't depend on how many that you're making during that manufacturing run. We're only using a single unit of that one. So I'm going to click save on that. And so you see that how our components now are added to our step. Okay, so once you've added the items to each of the steps, then you're essentially completed with the bill of materials. So understand also with the bill of materials, we can have different versions of these. So I'm creating the original default version, but you could actually, once we save it, we can also add to this and have other versions. Say if you have to swap out some of the items, but you want to remember what the previous version was, we can have an unlimited number of versions of our bills of material that go into our finished product. Okay. And one last thing that I wanted to show you is once you've completed all of your bills of material, one of the things that you can do is you can find your list of bill of materials under here, the bills of material under the full list. And then under these, if you want to like swap out a component, so maybe a specific one of the components, you know, a nut or screw or an arm needs to be replaced because maybe a supplier no longer supplies those parts, but someone else does. What you can do from here is you can go to replace component, and you would find the component that you need to replace. And then you would tell it what it is that you need to replace it with. And then once you do that, it will update all of the existing bills of material with the replacement component. So, and very quickly, that is how you build a bill of materials, and brings together this in combination with using a work order next. You would identify your bill of materials, and you would work through then the steps and the consumption of the items. And like I say, another time we'll do a presentation on units of measure and how those work into the system and can help speed up your process very quickly. This is Tim Grant with Business Solution Providers. I hope you've enjoyed this explanation and discussion, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.